Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Go Deep with Kat and Sarah. This week, we are going to look at thought, the principle of thought, thoughts, and thinking. All aspects of what we call thoughts and thinking. So if I haven't confused you yet, stay tuned. So, Kathleen, you were telling me something about thoughts.
Yeah, I was just saying that it's in constant it's thinking and thoughts are like constantly changing. And I guess that like can that be trusted? It's
Oh no.
like it's as if there's a mind that's just constantly changing its mind. It's spinning a different story constantly. So that's just kind of interesting.
Yeah. We can always change our mind. It's very fluid and flexible and changeable, infinitely changeable.
I think what's interesting to me is that the Western culture in particular, like we're so identified with thought as if they're mine. I generated them, I created them, I I should believe them. There's information in that thinking that is going to be useful to me to navigate life and but it to me it looks like a machinery that's just spitting out random sentences that happen to be captured with my attention that get seduced by them at times. Oh yeah, that I thought that's my thought. Therefore, it must be real. Therefore, it must be worth investigating further or paying attention to or believing. But it's always changing. So the minute I believe one thought, it's subject to change within seconds, within milliseconds. But how identified we are with that machinery, that mechanism, as if that's actually us.
Yeah. And as you were talking, my air conditioner just came on. Are you hearing it?
No.
Okay, good. So it won't be. Okay. Now that we got that down. Um, it was coming to me about the principle of thought before any thoughts, individual thoughts or thinking get created. The principle of thought is, well, it's energy, but it's the creative potential of the universe. So it's the ability to create. And it's unlimited in its ability to create, and then or our ability to use it to create and then recreate. And our thinking is one of the things we create with it. So it's created. It's like we're painting these pictures with it. But the sort of properties or nature of the principle of thought, the original energy before we do anything with it, is just this vast potential possibility. And so when you say, oh, thoughts, our individual thoughts are always changing, they're always, that looks to me like, well, of course, because they're coming out of absolute pure potential. Anything can come out of that.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know where they come from. I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't think I was considering where they come from. So I don't know either. I had become aware recently this week about some thinking I had around money that I hadn't been aware of. And I all of a sudden noticed it. Oh. And at first I thought it was thinking I had about money. But then I noticed that it wasn't actually about money itself, like what money is in reality, like what money actually is. It was 2 or 3 steps removed from money, and it was thinking I had about money. And so it was a few steps made up and had actually nothing to do with what money actually is. Which I thought was it was so random. And yet it was then I believed it. And then I was behaving as if it were true and creating my own little reality to live in around that. And, but the whole starting point was not anything. And I kind of got curious about that. I'm like, well, where did that come from? And it's interesting in asking that question, my memories, my brain supplied me with potential answers to it, but those didn't feel true either. Those just felt like something that I was trying to give an answer to, you know? And the whole thing just looked unanchored or untethered to anything. Like, well, where did that come from? Some people might say, oh, well, it's like a byproduct of the brain. It throws out these things. Or it looked useful to you in the past. I don't know if any of that is actually true. We seem to, whether we receive them or generate them, or I don't know, they come and go. Which makes it so much more freeing because I don't have to believe any of them.
No, and it's quite interesting to just ask the simple question. If you find yourself maybe believing, or is just the simple question like, is that actually true?
Mm, yeah.
Do you, Dr. Sarah Joy, are you comfortable sharing the details of this money?
Mhm,
Because
I think
like as
so.
you're talking abstractly, I'm like, what?
Mhm.
I'm on the edge of my chair. Like, what? What was the thinking? And if not, we move on.
I'm comfortable. I'm just not sure I entirely remember.
Ah,
But it was in a question that a teacher had posed, was what if you had no drama around money? And it wasn't to me specifically, it was a whole group. And my first reaction to that question was, oh, that'd be so much easier. And then I started to wonder, well, okay, what drama do I have around money? Because I wasn't super aware of it. And then I started to see how my parents thought about money or used it money. And it came to me that I was trying to behave around money so that I could get my dad's acceptance or my dad's approval and my mother's love at the same time. And they're the way they both independently think about money, and in those relations, those two things are actually counter forces. So it's like I was trying to satisfy two different things that weren't really possible. And so it was just like trying to swim upstream or something, and then it's like, well, no wonder you just don't want to think about it. But then when I thought about, well, what do they, I'm not sure they even know what they think of, like if I was to ask them what they think about money, they wouldn't be aware of it, or they would say probably something different. So what it really was me as a probably 5-year-old, or me as a young child, observing how they behaved around what they said they could afford or couldn't afford, or when does my mom give checks for birthdays, and how much do you get, or gifts, like it looked to me almost like me as a child trying to suss out what are the rules around this money thing, and then making up. So it was several layers of different people making up how one should behave in relation to one's money. And it just started to look less and less and less like it had anything to do with actual money. Not sure if that makes any sense.
I think it's just a great example of this thought machine, like wherever it comes from. And certainly I think there are times when like a pattern of thinking and believing that's repetitive for me, and it can be something about money. There's not enough. I can't afford. I can't afford I can't afford, something comes up, the thing that I think I want, I don't really need. It's got a higher price point, like, and so the words that come out of my mouth, well, I can't afford that. And that amount of money is sitting right in the savings account. So I do. The money is sitting right there. I could buy the thing. So the I can't afford story, that's just been on rinse and repeat in this brain for so many years. It is, I can see where that thought, very similar to what you said, like me observing my parents saying that, and me knowing that full well the money was there to make that purchase. But the word was, can't afford it. I can't afford that. And so years and years, and I would, I would say that sometimes thinking we've just heard a thought for so long that we've kind of taken it on as true, with unquestioned,
Mhm.
and ours. And it's not. It's not. It's
Yeah. Yeah, I remember just now it was so all those things that I was talking about, the outcome or behavior of it was that anytime I had to put a price on something, I couldn't do it, because now I'm kind of, so what would, if I wanted to sell something, what would it be worth? Well, it's like, in trying to satisfy what I think both of my parents would say, then it comes to this conflicting, where then I can't come up with a number because it's gonna always be too low for my mom and too high for my dad. And so my dad wouldn't approve, and neither would my mom. And if I move it higher, oh no, and so that if I'm, but it looked like to put a price on a service or an item now as an adult business person that has anything to, like, that's ridiculous. That it wouldn't just be, what do you want for your, like if I'm selling a coffee mug, what do you want for your coffee mug? But there's all these other things that I was putting on top of it that I had no idea. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's why I always go blank and sort of just like, well, I don't know, what do I, what do other people put on it? It's funny.
Yeah, it sounds like we've kind of gone in the direction of money. Cool.
It was more
Um,
that was the topic of where I was seeing that our thoughts that we believe really they're random. Like it's so random. I would have never guessed that I would have tried to, like, why would I try to come up, like, look at money in that way? It's so random. Yeah. And I remember a long time ago, a long time ago. I don't know how long ago, you'd been talking in the past about our thoughts seem to come out of nowhere. They're just they're just
that 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 looks 100% true to me. And it's so interesting in working with people when they start seeing that, then when they start seeing anything about thought, one of the first things that people will say to me is like, I can't think of the right.
You may have frozen, Kathleen, unless you have a really long pause. So I will talk.
Like,
Oh,
as
you
if
you froze and then we didn't hear you, and I was musing about whether you were going to come back, and I was just getting ready to fill time by tap
I'm
dancing.
sorry. I'm
So
sorry. My internet's a little unstable.
we heard that when you first work with clients, they commonly say something.
Uh-huh.
We don't know what
They'll
that is.
Okay, so they will recognize that thought isn't necessarily a reliable truth teller, right?
Mhm.
And so immediately they're like, okay, well, I just need to get better thinking. I need to create better thoughts because obviously those thoughts aren't true. Like those money stories aren't true. So I need to like come up with a better money story and think that, as if we have control over the thoughts that arise, which is again like a whole nother layer of people like, yeah, like those thoughts are mine and I thought them. I made them up. I created them. Huh, like follow your thinking for a while and you could realize that, like
Hmm.
you said, it's entirely random. Who knows where they came from?
Yeah, I mean, we can use our imagination to make up a different story about, say, whatever it is we want. But what I find much more freeing is when you don't really, I guess I'll continue with the example of money. When I see that all my thinking about it is made up and random and like, oh, okay, I don't have to behave in that way at all. It's so freeing because then you can kind of look at, well, what is the thing we call money?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's a value exchange. Do I need to have any story around it? Well, not really. Do I want it? Yeah, I kind of do. Okay. If I want it, well, then I'll offer something and if people want the thing I'm offering, then we'll trade.
That's huge, Sarah Joy. That is huge. That when we look at the thing in the world of form, and there's no story about it other than the thing, money, a tool to buy things, right? A device to transact in the world of form. That's all it is. And without a story, like we don't need a better story about money because money doesn't need a story, any story, right? It just is. It's a tool to transact in the world.
Mhm.
So it's beautiful what you said. So anything other than what the thing actually is doesn't really, it's inconsequential what we think about it or what kind of thinking we have about it.
Yeah.
You want something, you want to purchase something, the seller has assigned this, you know, US Canadian dollar value to it. What are you going to do to get the money to buy the thing if you want it? End of stories.
Yeah.
But oh, money is so laden with
Also,
thinking and stories about money and me and my life and right. It's all about me.
yeah. Oh, I might sneeze. Sorry. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Everyone can hear me sneeze now. Hang on. Okay. Um, I noticed that with my husband and my kids too. Not money, different topic with thinking. When I was interacting with them, um, so I noticed this because the word enjoy kept coming to mind. And when I was just enjoying them, I didn't have any thinking about how they should behave. And it was completely different. And I realized I'd had a bunch of thoughts about how they should be behaving in any given moment. And if I'm just enjoying them, there's no particular way they should be if I'm just enjoying. And yeah, it sort of stripped it down to I could see them more clearly rather than my thinking about them. I didn't need to get a better story about my husband, for example. Or I liked him better when I was just enjoying him than when I was looking at my thinking about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, does this one have, I mean, this has profound implications in relationships, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I would propose the relationship we have with ourselves, how I should be and shouldn't be, and you know, thoughts about me.
Oh yeah. Pretty much
'Cause
what
that's what most of mine happen to be. Most of mine happen to be all about this this entity over here that I think is me and my relationships and my friends and my family, and then how they should be, or how I want them to be, or how I don't like them to be, or you know, they're sad and I don't want them to be sad. Well, yeah, like when we just show up with curiosity and wonder in any kind of, engagement with any other human being. There's just this space to just like really know the person, really, really see ourselves. And how often I don't do that well. That there's, and you, Sarah Joy, I'm sure of this at, coming only a few weeks off the listening conference. Like all about being with one another, with thought, fading to the background, thoughts when it's arising, just not attaching to it.
Yeah. I'm trying to find words other than yeah. Yeah, the less you think you need thinking, the less it happens too. Like there's just less of it shows up. And when it shows up and you don't care or believe it, or it moves along. But yeah, less of it shows up. And then the clarity of seeing what is actually there is really awesome. And the feeling of yeah, I'm laughing because the words I just used really awesome are like understating it hugely. And yeah, the experiencing whatever it is, whether it's another person, yourself, money, a coffee mug, with clarity, without a whole lot of extra thinking. That feels almost better than anything.
Eh, yeah.
Better than getting better thinking.
Yeah.
Because that never really works. It just keeps you busy.
I mean, as you hold up the coffee mug, it's like the mind labeled it coffee mug. Okay. So you already know, like it's so okay, I know what that is. It's that thing. It's that, and so we make an assumption about it, and we miss the experience of the thing. Like same with a person. It's like thought and our thinking paints everything into a box of already known. And then what if we're wrong? What if this really isn't a glass? What if it really didn't have water in it and I tipped it over? Would I get wet? Uh,
I guess that's where it's good at that the thought is always fluid, so we can always just repaint. We can.
yeah, how fun is that?
It's fun.
Something you said earlier, Sarah Joy, about, thought when we see that it isn't, I'm totally putting words in your mouth, but that we can live without reliance on constant thinking.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
to me, I've been navigating life much more without attention to what I think, to thought, period. And initially I just, you know, as I tried to think about living that way, as I was using thought to contemplate whether or not would that work, uh, at some point I was like, just try it for a few hours, try it for a day, just sort of experiment. And I think there needs to be a little bit of trust, I guess, maybe that that you can let go of that, all that intellectual conceptualizing, and step into a totally different way of being and living, and not being identified as your thinking or by your thinking. And anybody that's listening, that if that just feels a little bit, well, if there's any curiosity or wonder or excitement or, that's for those two weirdos, but not me. Like, you could just try it on for a while, just see if, I guess, would be more navigating by just that moment to moment knowing, intuition, feeling.
Yeah. So yeah, again, that's, it looked really scary to me at first. Oh, but my thinking is how I get everything done. My thinking is what made me not homeless all these years. Um, because I was willing to, I knew enough people who were very successful in the world, more successful than I, were talking about that's how they lived and that's how they actually became successful. Like got to another level was they had to let go of that thinking because it's tiring and it's limiting. And so I trusted that they knew what they were talking about to start with. And then I started to just observe when I was in the flow and getting a lot of things done, I wasn't thinking. And so what I thought had been bringing me quote unquote success in any area was not the thinking.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And
yes.
the more I started to see it, oh, I was wrong. And so then, you go another step, and then, oh, I don't actually need any of that.
I mean, if what we're saying is true, that it isn't this entity called me that's actually creating the thinking. Like, if thought is just arising, then I'm not doing that. But all the years that I had success in an endeavor, what if just like doing was happening? I was doing what occurred to me, you know, all along. And I think we had the mention of this on another podcast, that neuroscience has proven that the brain comes in afterwards and takes credit that it thought, oh, pick up the glass. No, by the time the mind had the thought, pick up the glass was already being picked up.
Yeah.
So all of this idea that our thinking is important comes from a misunderstanding of how we work. Like, doing and behaving and actions and words out of the mouth are happening, and then the mind wants to come in and go, I did that.
Yeah. Just now when you were talking about that, because I've read a number of those neuroscience studies, and some of them they call them precognition studies because the brain, the the lighting up in the brain for the motor function, like for the actual raising your arm, happens long before we have any intention to raise our arm. And so it almost, when you said it, it almost looks to me like it's the other way around. Like something, us, a bigger us, we do the action and then our brain labels it after the fact. And we think that we had decided to raise our arm, but it's actually the other way around. We observe that we're doing something and then label it. And yeah, we've got it backwards. Which is really interesting. So we're guided through life. See, it depends on what you call yourself. Where if you say, where do thoughts come from? You know, how big are you? And I still don't know, even if I'm the biggest that I can imagine of myself, an ocean of divine energy. I don't, it, those thoughts of the limiting thoughts, the negative thoughts, the ones that, the worry thoughts, not the inspiration, the ones that feel limiting or negative. I don't know where those come from. Are they just our brain trying to like some sort of weird function of our brain or ego trying to like justify itself or something? Or I don't know. But
No, I don't. I mean, I have some theories, and I'm less and less inclined to really think it matters.
any theory I make up is like, oh well, we have no idea.
We don't have any idea.
Yeah. I have a wondering if it has to do with, so our brain and our sensory equipment have to integrate so that we have a picture, like our visual information, the way it comes in, the raw visual information is not the picture we see.
Right.
And the raw sound information is not the sounds we hear. There's an awful lot of subconscious brain integration. And to make that 3D looking movie reality. And it's useful for us because then we can go and, hunt and gather and forage and feed ourselves and reproduce, and we can be successful as a species. It'd be really hard if everything was this formless, undifferentiated energy, like which one's a strawberry and which one's a poisonous mushroom. I have no idea. But I wonder, and I guess I'm being entertained by wondering if the throwing off of those random thoughts is some sort of byproduct of that mechanism that allows us to actually inhabit a world that, has an up and down in time and makes sense to us. And almost like it's totally unnecessary. So I don't know.
Sarah Joy, we just uh
Making up stuff.
no. I just love, I mean, we started with this exploration of where does thought come from? I don't even know where we started. But I mean, we have gone down the rabbit hole, which I love. And I think it's just cool.
We did say we would go deep.
That's what we named the podcast. Oh my goodness.
We did.
You know, I used to, and I think it was fear. Like it reminds me a little bit of what we were talking about. Can we navigate without this identification with thought and the intellect more? And I can remember a good friend of mine who was a very, very successful and very well trained psychotherapist that had an office next to my practice. And she would say, I'm just curious. Like she'd have a new client come in And it would drive me crazy. Like, uh, curiosity was not in my realm of something I wanted to live in. Curiosity and wonder. No, I need to know. I want to figure it out. No, no curiosity. Like that implied living in, I don't know, living in the unknown.
Mm,
And boy, oh boy, there's freedom there in, I don't know, so let's just be curious. It's a lot easier
yeah.
or a lot less stressful, I guess.
Something's coming to mind, but I'm not sure if it's a left turn or not. But a while ago, I had realized that anytime I had any negative thought, it all of them could be completely disregarded. None of them were ever true, ever.
And is the implication that a positive thought is true?
No, I hadn't really gone that far with it. It was more just because I kept thinking I had to fix. If I felt tension or negative or, upset, there was always this urgency feeling to trying to fix the negative thoughts.
Yeah. Get better thinking.
I wasn't even seeing it as thinking. I just thought that it was telling me something true about the world.
Ah,
So I had to fix it so the bad situation wouldn't be happening, whatever it
got
was.
it. Okay, I got what you're saying.
And I noticed in actual situations where there was maybe something, I don't want to call it a bad situation because it's a judgment, but if the shit was hitting the fan, it never had that negative feeling. It was always just the neutral of what was to do right now. I may not like what was happening, but in actual crises, it wasn't the same. Um, there was an immediacy of action rather than a negative thinking. Um, but yeah, I noticed that if it was, I could completely disregard all of them. I suppose you could say that about positive thinking, but I like the feeling of positive thinking, so it doesn't matter. Um, I don't really care if, and that didn't have the stickiness to it because I wasn't, a positive thought sort of tends to just float on by. You don't grab it and try to fix it.
That I would agree with. It seems to be, again, I'm making it up, right? Evolutionary biology, I don't know. It does seem that the so-called negative, fearful, thinking are the ones that grab our attention, right? The brain is wired to look for what's changing, what's different. Oh, something's wrong. That negative feeling that comes with or negative thought, seems to be the ones that we attach to more than the positive ones that we can just like, yeah, fluffy cloud in the sky. It's pretty and let it float on by. And not believe that one either. Because who knows?
And I don't know. This is my theory. This is another theory of mine. The evolutionary biology. People talk about were the progeny or were the ancestors of people who survived. And so the fight or flight response or the attention to fear was ingrained so that we would survive. Except when I've been in some survival, a couple actual life and death survival situations, there's no fear. There's only, oh my God, I have to give this person CPR. An immediacy, but there's very much a clarity of action without thought. And I've heard that time and time again from people, maybe first responders or people who've been in life or death situations, they don't feel fear until they think about what happened afterwards. Like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. But it only comes in after. And so if fear was there to keep you safe and keep you alive and keep you surviving, it would come in before thought. And it doesn't. And it never does. And so I found that suspicious. I don't think we are the descendants of people who use the fear, the fight or flight response in that way. That it's another, I don't know. That doesn't look true to me.
Mm,
But I don't know. I don't know what cavemen a million years ago or however many years ago acted or felt or thought, or I don't know.
yeah. And if it looks like the negative thinking has to be fixed, who knows why it looks that way?
I think it's something I just made up. A lot of people do, but yeah, it comes back to thoughts are random. Who
Yeah.
knew? So maybe with that, we'll close and say thank you for listening, and you can join us down the rabbit hole next time.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone.